Last year, I already investigated this smoke seller, a scammer of fools. After what I have witnessed, heard, and read, I am more than certain that what this man has created is a kind of cult alongside a textbook pyramid scheme. They are calling a cult what is being created by an influencer named Amadeo Llados. Amadeo Llados, known on social media as Yados Fitness, jumped from gyms and body transformation videos to building a personal brand that mixes fitness, success mindset, and an ostentatious lifestyle. His presence today operates in his own ecosystem: YouTube channels, multiple Instagram accounts, and a commercial offer presented under the name of an online university, where he sells courses, mentorships, and memberships for those seeking their first million or who want to become trainers and digital business creators. That commercial platform, self-named Yados University and visible on his official pages, is the income engine he constantly promotes on his social media as the route to replicate his life of expensive cars and exotic trips. The model he proposes mixes training in habits, physical discipline, and online monetization strategies. But the most relevant part of his public narrative is not just the content, it's the commercial mechanics. According to journalistic investigations and analysis presented by the plaintiff's lawyers, a large part of that business functions through an affiliate and recurring sales system that requires a monthly payment from students and offers commissions for bringing in new members. That mechanism is precisely one of the core elements of the accusations, which argue that the operation could fit the definition of pyramid schemes and aggressive commercial practices. Journalists have also documented that the prices of the programs often exceed what is affordable for people in delicate economic situations, and that many of the promises of financial results rely more on motivational narratives than on verifiable business plans. Right now, there are 8,000 people in the affiliate program paying $50 a month. Those 8,000 are reproducing the content everywhere on social media. As his digital fame rose, testimonies began to accumulate from dissatisfied participants who described a repeated pattern, documented payments for courses, promises of personalized follow-up that were not fulfilled, materials that several complainants described as generic or recycled, and difficulties obtaining refunds or prolonged support in private groups. Cases covered in the media include dramatic stories of people who sold belongings or took out loans to access the programs and ended up bankrupt or in economic hardship. One of the most widely discussed examples was that of a man who, according to reports, lost savings and property after betting everything on this method. These accounts have been collected and verified by various media outlets that have followed the phenomenon since its expansion. The accumulation of citizen complaints led to a collective legal response with judicial weight. More than 1,000 people announced that they would prepare a massive lawsuit. And according to judicial information and news reports, the National Court admitted a macro complaint that includes accusations ranging from fraud and alleged pyramid scheme to hate crimes for statements made in the influencer's content. Your email now. Write it now. Trash out of the fucking room. I don't know if you understand, you fucking idiots. So egocentric that you think I have to stop this fucking class for your stupidity. You are mentally retarded. The magistrates considered that from the documentation provided, there were sufficient indications to initiate a criminal proceeding that is now underway in court. That admission does not equate to a conviction, but it does mean that the gathered complaints exceeded the minimum threshold of credibility to open a formal investigation. Experts consulted by the press have raised the alarm beyond the economic aspect. Psychologists and legal experts have pointed out the presence of dynamics typical of very closed influence groups, sometimes compared to sectarian practices, where emotional dependence and the promise of radical change work as recruitment engines. And the lawyer representing the complainants has publicly stated that there are signs of criminal association and a structure designed to exploit vulnerable people, with criminal consequences that could lead to several years in prison if the investigation and trial determine so. At the same time, not all accounts are the same. There are students who publicly defend their experience and describe personal improvements, which complicates the analysis and forces a distinction between emotional narrative, marketing, and legal evidence, saying that Yados has totally changed my life for the better, okay? He has taught me discipline. He has taught me not to fail. He has taught me how to manage a social network. He has taught me how to edit videos, a base. This is what can be stated today with public and journalistic documentation. A meteoric rise on social media, a business model based on courses and affiliates, hundreds and, according to lawsuits, more than 1,000 complaints, and the formal opening of a judicial proceeding by the National Court. All of this raises key questions about responsibility, advertising, and consumer protection in the digital age, and sets the stage for later episodes where specific cases, judicial actions, and the real impact on the lives of those who paid for promises many consider unfulfilled will be detailed. While the collective lawsuit advanced in court and lawyers on both sides prepared their strategies, more detailed individual experiences began to emerge from those who had placed their trust in Yados' fitness. Various testimonies published in the Spanish press described how the pressure to enroll in the programs was constant, with calls and messages urging potential clients not to miss the opportunity of a lifetime. In some cases, salespeople associated with the brand even suggested taking bank loans or turning to relatives to cover the cost of mentorships. These intensive recruitment practices were flagged by consumer rights experts as a pattern of psychological manipulation designed to generate urgency and reduce the critical thinking ability of those targeted. The magnitude of the commercial structure came to light when companies registered under the names of collaborators and multiple entities created over time were identified, with the objective of handling payments, billing, and advertising. Journalistic investigations found that some of these entities dissolved shortly after being established, raising doubts about the fiscal transparency of the business. Although no firm conviction has been issued by the tax authorities or the national court in that regard, the recurrence of short-lived companies increased suspicions that the business structure was designed to make tracking responsibility more difficult. In parallel, Amadeo Llados' own public narrative fueled the controversy. In interviews and live streams, he claimed to have emerged from a youth marked by lack of resources and asserted that gym discipline and a winner's mentality had turned him into a millionaire. It's crazy. 8 years ago, I was washing dishes, and now I'm here giving a conference to 200 people. However, journalists who investigated his trajectory found inconsistencies between those statements and public records. The age at which he claimed to have achieved financial independence didn't match available tax data, and the speed with which luxury properties and cars appeared did not align with the timelines he described. These contradictions, amplified on social media, became fuel for critics who accused him of constructing a motivational narrative based on exaggerations and falsehoods. Testimonies from former members of his university describe a closed environment where loyalty to Llados was reinforced and any doubt was discouraged. In private Telegram or Discord groups, administrators insisted that external criticism was the work of enemies of success, and that leaving the program meant giving up. According to psychologists interviewed in reports, this language is characteristic of environments with sect-like dynamics, where emotional dependence on a leader is generated and participants' critical capacity is limited. For many complainants, the difficulty was not only economic but also psychological. Leaving the bubble meant recognizing that they had invested in empty promises. Media pressure reached such a point that even official institutions began to speak out. Consumer associations issued statements warning about the marketing tactics used by these types of online academies and asked affected individuals to file formal complaints so cases would not remain solely in public opinion. At the same time, the National Court reinforced the investigation with economic reports, collection of contracts, and analysis of the materials delivered to students, with the aim of determining whether the promises of financial results amounted to misleading advertising subject to criminal sanction. All this set up a scenario in which the figure ceased to be just a fitness influencer, and became a case study on the limits of legality in digital marketing. What on his social media appeared as an example of discipline and wealth was presented in judicial documents as a system questioned by hundreds of people who felt deceived. This duality between aspirational image and ongoing criminal investigation marked the next stage of his story, where the tension between success and deceit would reach an even higher level. As the macro lawsuit progressed in the national court, more concrete evidence began to appear, reinforcing the perception of a scheme designed to take advantage of the hopes of those who trusted the promises of Yados Fitness. Documents leaked to the press showed contracts written with ambiguous clauses promising guaranteed results without specifying how those achievements would be measured. At the same time, several former students shared recordings of video calls where participants were encouraged to recruit new clients to move up within the community, a structure that, according to complainants, confirmed the pyramid nature of the operation. The public narrative also became more strained when testimonies emerged from families left in ruin after betting their savings on the business model Yados sold as the direct path to success. One particularly widely shared case was that of a young man who mortgaged his parents' home to pay for the most expensive programs and ended up without a house or stable income. Another was that of a single mother who resorted to quick loans to cover the premium course and ended up with unpayable debt. These accounts, backed by banking documents and public reviews, became the human face of the controversy. Behind the luxury cars and motivational speeches were tangible victims seeking justice. At the same time, various media outlets began analyzing Amadeo Llados' communication style, pointing out how he used language loaded with military and aggressive terms, talking about winners and losers, where not having success was interpreted as a personal lack of discipline, never as a flaw in the system. DKNZ, put your email here, bro, in the chat. DKNZ, you have two options. You give me your email here or I'll kill you, or I can find it myself. And if you make me look for it, you're going to piss me off. This is a fucking useless guy who doesn't even dare put his Instagram or his email. What kind of fucking coward are you? You're a fucking worthless coward piece of shit. Critics pointed out that this rhetoric was a way to shield himself. If students failed, the responsibility fell on them, not on the product sold. This rhetorical mechanism, repeated in interviews and on his own social media, was labeled by specialists as a strategy of emotional manipulation intended to minimize complaints. The accuser's lawyers also brought another element to the table: the use of status symbols as a selling tool. High-end watches, sports cars, and international trips were showcased not just as part of his lifestyle, but as proof that his method worked. However, journalistic investigations indicated that some of these assets were not in his name or had been acquired through leasing contracts, contradicting the narrative of a consolidated millionaire. This detail fueled the idea that the projected image was carefully constructed to inspire confidence and generate sales, rather than reflect a stable financial reality. Defense reactions were not long in coming. Yados claimed it was all part of a smear campaign, and that the negative testimonies corresponded to a minority of people who hadn't worked hard enough. He argued that his online university offered real tools and that results depended on individual effort. But these statements clashed with the volume of evidence accumulated in court and public opinion, where new testimonies reinforcing the pattern of irregularities appeared daily, increased when groups of lawyers and consumer associations began organizing information sessions to guide affected individuals. Media coverage, already constant, intensified with television reports and investigative articles that spent weeks tracking the case's evolution. Suddenly, the life of Amadeo Llados became a recurring topic in talk shows, podcasts, and digital documentaries, where not only his personal responsibility was discussed, but also the legal void that allows the proliferation of online academies with exaggerated promises. This increasingly tense scenario placed Yados Fitness in the eye of a storm that went beyond the personal. It was no longer just about whether an influencer had deceived his audience, but to what extent authorities could and should intervene in business models based on motivation and course sales. The magnitude of complaints and the economic dimension of the losses indicated that the case was destined to become a key precedent in the regulation of this type of activity in Spain. As the judicial process advanced and media echo grew, Amadeo Llados' figure reached a point of no return. The National Court began systematically collecting documentary evidence, bank movements, payment histories of students, internal emails, and even contracts of affiliates who were part of his so-called university. Judges requested economic reports to assess whether commissions and recruitment schemes fit the legal definition of a pyramid scam. This scrutiny opened a national debate about the thin line between legitimate digital training programs and structured fraud. Social pressure was reflected in every public appearance. Television outlets dedicated entire segments to analyzing the case. Experts in criminal law and economics were invited to discuss the implications, and affected individuals gave interviews describing emotional and financial consequences. It was not just about lost money. Many described anxiety, family breakups, and social isolation after having blindly trusted Yados' promises. The phenomenon surpassed the economic dimension to become an issue of mental health and business ethics. Meanwhile, the most aggressive marketing strategies he had used were exposed. Influencers linked to his environment revealed they were paid to speak well of the courses and show supposed results on social media to create the appearance of collective success. Some of these individuals admitted that the positive experiences they publicly shared did not match their personal reality, but that they received financial incentives to maintain the narrative. Hey Yados, I have to thank you from the bottom of my heart for teaching me to be authentic, for teaching me to be my best version. A year ago, I had no purpose, no meaning. I was destined to be just another person. I was beginning to stop believing in God. But God, the same God without me even realizing, put your videos in my face so that you would eventually lead me back to God. These findings reinforced the idea that the project was sustained on a carefully designed facade where every post aimed to attract new clients without showing failures. Journalistic investigations also pointed out the existence of parallel companies, registered in other European countries that may have been used to move capital obtained in Spain and avoid stricter tax controls. Although at that stage inquiries were still in the preliminary phase, the mere mention of international entities triggered suspicions of money laundering. This possibility, not yet confirmed judicially, added an international component to the case and led some media outlets to compare it to large-scale financial frauds in other parts of the world. As all this came to light, the digital community that once idolized him began to fragment. Some of his most loyal followers continued defending his message of discipline and effort, claiming results depended solely on personal work. But another, increasingly large group joined the wave of criticism and shared evidence of unjustified charges, social media blocks, and lack of refunds. The reputation of the self-proclaimed mentor deteriorated rapidly, and his name became inseparably associated with the word scam. The end of this chapter did not come with a definitive sentence, but with an evident conclusion in the social sphere. Amadeo Llados ceased to be perceived as an example of personal improvement in the world of fitness and became the symbol of how excessive ambition and deceptive marketing can ruin real lives. His story is both a warning and a precedent. It warns those seeking magical formulas for rapid success on the internet and sets a precedent for the need to more firmly regulate business models based on aggressive recruitment. The life of Yados Fitness thus became an uncomfortable mirror of the digital era. A man who knew how to sell dreams, who built an empire on collective aspiration, and who in that same process ended up pursued by courts and pointed at by thousands as responsible for their failures. Among luxury cars, shiny watches, and motivational speeches, an inescapable truth was exposed. No matter how well lies are wrapped in success, they eventually collapse under the weight of facts.